Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Fatimah binti Ramli, and first of all, I will say that this presentation was done for the purpose of my case review assignment under Law of Contract 1, and it was prepared for my lecturer, Dr. Suzy Fadila. And the case that I'm going to review is the case of Ramli bin Shahdan and another against Motor Insurance Bureau of West Malaysia, and another that was held in the Court of Appeal in 2006. The content of my presentation also include the summary of the case, arguments made by both parties, issue of the case, ratio decidency, which was the reason of the decision made, and lastly was the conclusion. Uh, the parties involved in this case is Ramli bin Shahdan and another as the appellants, uh, and against Motor Insurance Bureau and another as the respondent. For the summary of the case, we're going to start on the year on 1968, where the first argument was concluded between Motor Insurance Bureau and the Ministry of Transport. This is because when the argument was entered by both parties, the Motor Insurance Bureau existence had been acknowledged as an insurance company, although the first existence of this bureau was not a function as an insurance company. Uh, However, when they entered the agreement, uh, the company had changed from an insurance company to insurance company, where the society can come or the applicants can come and claim for their insurance with certain conditions in the agreement when they are involved in accident. So, on 4th May 1985, the first and second appellants, who was the passenger of the first appellant, had suffered grave injury after they got into a motor accident. This accident happened between uninsured motorcyclists and the appellant itself. So, the appellant wants to claim for insurance for the injuries they suffered and to proceed against the uninsured motorcyclists. So, they hired an solicitors on their behavior, and the appellant solicitor who was Major Gunaratnam and Company, wrote to the first respondent, which was the Bureau, on 26 October 1985 to inform the appellant's intention to institute proceedings against the uninsured motorcyclists. And the correspondence between both parties had happened in a number of series. So, uh, during the correspondence between the both parties, uh, the respondent, the first and second respondent, which was the Motor Insurance Bureau and the Ministry of Transport, had entered a new agreement, which affect the correspondent of the uh, correspondent of both parties, because this agreement had caused some changes as it was resulting the termination of the service of Mr. Wong Sen Chong, Nagaraja and Company as the solicitors for the respondent. So although the the solicitor of the respondent are in process to withdraw from their service as the respondent solicitors, the appealant solicitor keep writing to the respondent solicitors uh, to had continue writing to continue their correspondence regarding the appellant's claim. However, after it been officially officially terminate the service of the Major Wong Sen Chow Nagaraja and Company as the solicitor of the respondent, the appellant solicitor had wrote directly and communicate directly to the first respondent requesting an amicable settlement without making reference to the judgment against uninsured motorcycle op- that was obtained on 3rd September in 1993, where the judgment was held on a High Court of Seremban against the uninsured motorcycle. So, uh, respond to the appeal solicitor's letter to the first respondent in 11 October and 12 November 1993, the first respondent had wrote a letter to them on 19 November 1993 and agreed to give the appellants 8,200 ringgit and 4,450 ringgit to the first and second appellants respectively. However, there are not disputes with the amount proposed by the first respondent, so they tried to correspondence with the Minister of Transport. However, they're still not satisfied enough with the amount and the letter correspondent with the Minister of the, so they take an action to sue against first respondent and second respondent. And during the holding of the case, uh, the appellant had argued that uh, they have they have the right to sue and claim for the insurance since the agreement made by the respondent was for the appellant's benefit, for their benefit. And when the accident happened, it also happened during the possession of the first agreement. However, the respondents argued that uh, a third person who are not involved in agreement cannot sue other for breaching the contract. After a few arguments made by both parties, the court held that the appeal was dismissed with cause. So, pertain looking at the argument made by both parties, we can see that the issue is whether the appellant have the right to sue the respondent, and this rule need to be determined by using the doctrine of privity because the argument made by both parties are arguments that are included in the doctrine of privity. So the rule that we are going to apply in the doctrine of privity is that the general rule of this doctrine that is only those who are parties to the contract of privy can sue or be sued on it, and no third party can sue in his or her capacity, said Lord Handel. This is because in the case of Dunlop Pneumatic Tyre Company against Selfridge and Company Limited 1915, uh, this rule also had been used as the plaintiff had sold a tyre to the UN company. However, Selfridge and Company, but when they buy from UN company and sold it back, they sold the tires under under below the list price, the plaintiff list price. So the plaintiff sought an injunction and damage for the action of the defendant. However, the court held that the plaintiff are not doesn't have right to sue because only a person who is a party to a contract can sue on it, as it mentioned earlier, because although was a contract between the defendant and the due, however, the plaintiff were not a party to it, so the plaintiff cannot sue the defendant of of his actions. So the other rule that you're going to apply in the doctrine of privity is the exceptions of the rule of the doctrine of privity, because as we know that in the doctrine of privity, in the exceptions of the doctrine of privity, there are a few circumstances where the third party can have the right to sue the respondent. So the first circumstance is the third party can sue as an executor, and it has been mentioned in the case of Biscuit against Biscuit, where it happens between a family member. In this case, In the case of Biscuit and Biscuit, 1967, a nephew promised his uncle to pay an annuity to his auntie in condition of his uncle transferring the goodwill of his business to the nephew. However, the auntie was not a party to the contract, uh, but the court held that it could be specifically enforced by the uncle personal representative, which was the auntie, against the nephew because breaching his promise. And the second is about the agency, where, for example, if the third party, example the principal, might be able to take benefit on inclusion clause by proving that the party imposing the clause were acting as the agent of the party, thereby bringing the third party into direct contractual relationship with. Uh, on the In the simple manner, you can see that the third party might sue on the basis of exchange or in a check-it, even though the contract was made by another person, because the uses of trade and commerce will have modified regulations of common law doctrine of priority of a contract. And the last one is the trust, which happened in the case of Gregory and Parker against William 1817. It's quite a it happens when uh, Lord Hardwicke indicated the possibility of trust in the Sir William Grant had affirmed the concept of possibility of trust in the case. In this case, the Parker had owned money. The Parker had owned money to the Parker had owned money to both Gregory and Williams. Parker agreed to with Williams, 21 with Williams to assign him the whole of his property if William would pay the debt due to Gregory, but William failed to implement his promise. Gregory and Parker filed appeal in equity to complete performance and a promise succeeded. It was held that the Parker must be regarded as a trustee for Gregory and Gregory, and he, which was the Gregory, derived an equitable right through modifications of Parker Agreement. It can be said that if someone put his trust, if someone show or imply his trust on the person that make his promise, then he can complete performance of the promise. Uh, uh, I mean, they can regarded as a trustee uh, for the plaintiff. So the trust put onto them can be used as the right to sue the defendant or the respondent. So for the conclusion, in our case, uh, we are using the rules of doctrine of privity in our case, as we can see that uh, although the first and second respondent made an agreement and uh, doesn't include the appellants. However, the second respondent can sue on the contract for the benefit of the appellant because the agreement was made for the benefit of him. However, the appellant cannot sue on his capacity because applying to the rule of the doctrine, the general rule of doctrine of privity. So it can ask for the help of the second respondent, which was the Minister of the Transport, to sue on his behalf on the contract for the benefit of land, and recover all the appellants would recover as the contract has been made for the appellant's benefit itself. So, if if the second respondent fails in his duty, the appellant has the right to sue the first respondent and the second respondent under under the rule of a sections on of doctrine of privity on the circumstances of by implying by under the implied trust given by them. So, uh, uh, if the second defendant fail to take action or to act on to sue on the contract for the benefit of the appellants, the first respondent and the second can be uh, take action or can be sued for as a joint defendants because uh, the applicant had put his trust on the means of transport to to enter into agreement with the motor insurance bureau. So, if the Minister of the Transport have performed a specific had sue on a specific performance or on the benefit of the appellants, it might successful help the applicants to recover all the claims that he wants to claim. However, the second respondent already done his duty, and the applicant does not satisfy with the correspondent with the Minister of Transport. So, they cannot be the first and second respondent cannot be take action as a joint defendant. So the issue uh, whether the appellants have the right to sue the respondent failed because the Minister of Transport had done his duty, and even if they imply the action against the second respondent under as it failure to get the claims that they want because they have already put their trust on it on the second respondent. Uh, how, if they already because they already put there, it's not relevant because the Minister of Transport, the respondent had already done had corresponding with the applicants. However, they still not satisfied with the amount or the correspondence given by the Minister of the Transport. So they cannot be the first and second respondent cannot be joined as joint cannot be taken action as joint defendants. So we can see that as a question, the applicant does not have right to sue the respondent on his or her capacity because they does not include in the agreement, although the agreement was made for their benefit. And I think that's all for my presentations.